We're live.
Hello.
Okay. This is Pam Knight.
Hello.
Gretchen. Yes, I want to tag Pam Knight. Facebook Live asked me permission to tag Pam Knight.
Absolutely. Let's do this thing.
So this is like take 1,388.6 or
We've
something.
been about that. About that.
So you may have seen some of the videos at the SilentNoMore.world website, and you may have seen some of my individual Facebook Lives. So Pam came over, and we were going to do one of those other videos, and like midway, I'm like, do you mind if we just go Facebook Live?
And we were like, let's just do this
That's
thing.
a better thing.
Let's try this. Let's try this.
So throughout the Silent No More campaign, since I started it, the whole goal is to help people in the silence surrounding mental health crises that really lead to death by suicide and addiction. Sometimes it's not the death, it's the falling apart of a family, it's the shame that someone carries around, the hurt in a community, in a church. And
absolutely. It's everywhere,
yeah.
right? There's not,
Yeah.
I don't think there's a person, any person you ask now knows somebody that's either been affected by someone, that struggled with mental illness.
If you guys hear crying in the background, it's because I'm an awful dog owner, and my dogs are crying because they want to play, and we're doing this. But anyway, so...
It's our audience.
Yeah, so I got to see who Pam is as I was embarking on this whole mental health, make a difference, change journey. Hi, Cassandra. So, excuse the dog crying. He really wants attention.
He wants to be in the video. Here he comes. Now he's in the video.
He's a star too. He wants to talk about Silent No More as well. So, so I was starting to look at what are people experiencing who are going through a mental health crisis. What are people doing who want to make a change the way I want to make a change? And I kept seeing this lady, Pam Knight, show up, Pamela Knight showing up all over Facebook. And even when I was almost solely focused on suicide prevention education, addiction issues kept coming up all over social media, in my church. Hi, Patri. So I kept seeing that, and Pam comes up. Before Pam, I had only ever heard of people who do interventionist work when I'd watched the show Intervention,
Right.
which I thought, probably somewhat naively, was somewhat fabricated or sensationalized. And through getting to know Pam, I learned, no, it really is.
Yeah, that's exactly
Very
it.
real.
It's real. It's a family that realizes that they can't do anything to help their loved one who's suffering, and that they need someone to kind of help guide them through the process, you know. And for me, it's beautiful to be able to give back. I am in long-term recovery, and there's nothing that's more satisfying than be able to share my story and give hope and plant a seed that you can do this, you can beat this. Because when you're in the midst of your active addiction, you get deep into it, and you don't ever think there's going to be a way out.
Yeah.
And it's the shame and guilt that keeps everybody from really not coming forward, because we know we're going to be judged.
So
and it's awful because we're good people.
And I think, for me, because my struggles in life are different, maybe being addicted to a substance in that way is not my struggle. I can get the idea of shame of having done something or struggled with something that's difficult for me to admit, and I can only imagine how much more so when it's addiction.
Well, right, because I always go back to, it truly is the stigma. When someone says drug addict, everyone wants to paint the picture of someone that, basically homeless, dirty, they've done it to themselves. Addiction doesn't discriminate. It affects all walks of life. And until we can get to that point where people truly understand that, we have disease. It is a mental illness, and we should be able to talk about it freely, like you and I are. Just like if, God forbid I had cancer, what would I do? I would go to my support system. I would need support.
Yeah.
But it's when it comes to this, there, you're afraid to tell anybody because you just know you're going to be judged, or they're going to walk away and not want anything to do with you.
One thing that, it always intrigues me is that people can really understand. I know that if someone called me right now, as much as I love those and I love wanting to make a difference, I know that mostly from being told by people who are in active recovery that no one understands an addict like an addict.
Right.
And So,
That's the
and that
beauty
kind of
of
brings
it
me
all.
to you, like this person
Right,
that
it's-
is working in this beautiful intervention way. How did you come to see this is my calling? This is what I should be doing. How did that happen
It's-
for you?
My own journey. I became addicted to pain pills. My journey was probably about 15, 18 years long. Growing up, I didn't know what a pain pill was. As a matter of fact, I wasn't introduced to Vicodin until I was in my 30s, and I was at my son's football game, and I fell off the bleachers. There wasn't a back. I jumped up, went straight down, and I crushed 2 vertebrae, and I was getting Vicodin. And my brain always remembered this warm, fuzzy feeling. And I didn't abuse it in the beginning. I truly didn't. I did everything the doctor said. I did physical therapy, but slowly but surely, my brain knew what it liked, and I started, doctor shopping and doing stuff that I shouldn't have done, and just like with any type of drug, just like alcohol. I mean, the first time you have a beer, a glass of wine, you are so drunk and tipsy and whatever. Fast forward, you continue that. Now how many glasses of wine does it take? Or how many beers? So just like with your pills, one's not enough anymore.
Two or...
Well, yeah, a lot of people go to NA or AA. In NA, they have one of their sayings is, 1 is too many, 1,000 is never enough. And that just resonated with me because my brain doesn't have a shut-up valve.
So like if you couldn't just take one Vicodin to take care of the pain, because if you take one, you're going to want to take more, and that's not going to be enough. But
right, so you get...
So it's a constant cycle.
It's a vicious cycle. I mean, what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. We get stuck, and the problem is that, I don't ever blame the doctors. I was really manipulated. I could manipulate anybody in my active addiction, but what I can say is, when doctors are prescribing pain medicine, antidepressants, they need to be saying, it takes 30 seconds. Listen, when you're ready, you feel like you're ready to stop taking these, let's talk. Because you cannot cold turkey any of this. See, that's what you don't understand. So the first time I was still in control, I said, I'm going to quit. And within 48 hours, I was so sick, and my anxiety, we all have anxiety.
So you're trying to detox all on your own.
I just thought it would be easy. But we all have anxiety. This was like I wanted to jump out of my body. I mean, this was like I had never felt.
Do you think that might be one of the things? I mean, even as I'm listening, I don't know if it's an aha moment or if I just hadn't really thought of it this way, but I do know people who've struggled with addiction who are still working on repairing those relationships, or mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, children of addicts who say, they maybe don't understand that person can't just detox themselves.
Oh, right. No, it's
not like they could say, you know what, I just want to quit.
No, it's not.
Today.
Right. Because, see, our brain is so powerful. If it's our brain is a tolerance level, it's used to having it. If it's opiates buried into our bones. I mean, that shows you the power of, they're in our bones and they slowly get released. So anytime it's released, my brain's screaming for more and more and more and more. And it got to the point where I'm buying them on the street, and I had a monster on my back. I couldn't get it off, but I was now just using to feel normal, if that even makes sense. I didn't want to be dope sick, or some kids call it kicking. So I was doing everything I could just to stay at that threshold because I was so afraid. I tried. Every time I would try to quit, I would just go back harder, which brings me back to the doctors. Anytime they prescribe, or like Xanax, you cannot just cold turkey this stuff. You need to be told there's you need a plan.
As we're talking about this, and you can hear Pamela talking about how she's needing more and more, and doctor shopping, and going to places that she shouldn't go anyway, but to get pills.
Exactly.
And just to prove this can happen to anyone, I'm going to pull her in closer so we don't lose this pretty blonde next to me. But when you are considering, if you imagine, what does an addict look like? What does the family look like? Where are these crazy people from? You have a wonderful family.
Absolutely. On the outside, everyone. My life looked great. I hate the word perfect, guys. I won't use it. None of us are perfect. Nothing is perfect in life. But Yes, on the outside looking in. But see, when
So
you're dealing...
it wasn't like you had
no.
this, you wouldn't have some crappy husband and miserable sister and these awful kids. This can happen to anyone.
It can happen
and
to
this
anyone.
is like, I look at this, I mean, you're beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
But people have a look of what an addict
And that's what
should
we
look
have
like.
to, and that's what we have to deconstruct. You know, we got to get rid of the stigma, because that's why I feel like if you really truly didn't have anybody left, you had burnt your bridges with everyone. Here you are. Say you just sold your truck to buy your last whatever, heroin or whatever you're buying, cocaine, meth, and you start going through withdrawal. I could see where suicide becomes the option, and I really feel like they coincide. That's why our suicide rate's up.
Yeah.
Because you don't know where to turn, and you're going through withdrawal is so mentally and physically hard on your body. It is.
And then you add the shame,
the guilt,
maybe a loss of relationship if if your addiction is made you steal, lie, those sort of things. So
you do things you would never think that you would do, because now you've allowed that your drug of choice to become your number one. And
it's like the addiction is making the choice now, isn't it?
Oh yeah, this is you in your addict mode, and you don't see a way out, so you keep repeating the pattern. And so to me, knowledge is power. We need to spend more time doing stuff like this, educating. When I go into schools, it's so funny, after I'm done speaking, you know, I'll say, okay, I'm opening it up. Who wants to talk? There's always that quietness. Once one person, they just all start, now we're talking about it, you know, and that's what needs to happen versus what's going on right now. We can't continue to sweep it under the rug. It's not going to work.
Absolutely. Yeah, I went from being like a Pam fan, I not really a groupie, but I'll just call myself one. I mean, before I ever met you, just learning about you, learning what you were doing from others, hearing teenagers say, this lady, Pamela Knight, came to my school and talked, and it was amazing. I was like, I want to know more of what she's doing. And it was from afar, and even before I met Pamela, we'd only talked on Facebook at this point, someone I love dearly called Pamela for a family intervention. And it doesn't matter who that person is. So, by the way, I won't ask. So out of the over 4,000 friends on Facebook, maybe they're not even on Facebook. It's none of your business. But to hear the beautiful way that this family, including the person that needed to get help. So how do you think your journey through active addiction helps you help a family in crisis like this?
There's such a power that exists between someone who is in active addiction, someone who's suffering, and someone who's recovering. We get each other. You know, I've walked the walk. So my job is to share the hope, because we do recover. You know, we do re-enter back into society. But I'm also there for the family, for the support. You know, everyone's walking on eggshells. Nobody knows which way to turn. I'm also a parent of a child that has struggled with substance abuse disorder, and that was a harder journey than my own. Though I can tell you that for me, honestly, finding recovery was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. The best, it's the gift of life. I mean, I'm present, and sometimes I say that and people look at me, but you know, when I was in active addiction, I was in and out. I mean, now I'm present, you know, and you try to appreciate everything. And what I do now, as far as like speaking just with students or helping families, it's just it's my passion. I knew that the only way I could make sense of my journey, you know, was really to take my pain and turn it to purpose. That was the only way that I could even think. Like, I'm not going to hide this, because there's so many people that are struggling. So, but you know, when it's something that you're passionate about, it really doesn't seem like a job, you know, because
it feels
giving
like
back,
a calling.
it's a calling. That's exactly what it is.
And a calling is something you can and likely are passionate about, where it's great to have a job you love, but have a calling that you feel you just have to do it.
You have to do it
because it's in your soul.
Exactly. Exactly.
It is.
And I do know that, you know, there's when I get a text from a young adult, you know, that they're a year sober and they're thanking me, and there's no the feeling I feel no money in the world could ever replace. But and I'm just like, I'm so proud. But it's like, no, you did the hard work. I gave you the hope, but you're doing it. But it makes me feel so. It's just that giving back, because I know how down and out I was at one point, and I know that we do recover, and we re-enter back to society. Is it a long journey? Yes. It's not. They say it takes your brain 18 months to 3 years to go back to normal. So whether you went to treatment or not, or you're sober now, you still need a lot of guidance. You need boundaries. So aftercare, which is IOP, like intensive outpatient, sober homes, this is all part of the equation to helping someone get back on the track.
For, like, say the average community of people, maybe your church family, maybe your co-workers, your neighbors, if you could sit down with just a bunch of people that maybe they don't have the addict in their home, and they say, Pamela, what do we do? How do we engage our community and our families, whether it's not even whether, both to save lives, to help people feel like they're not alone, so that we know what's going on in our families. What do you tell them?
I mean, first of all, it would be nice just to know that people could feel okay just to come and listen to someone speak that's already walked the walk, because we're not called to judge really anyone, okay? So, but if you understand the journey that someone has to go on, that wants to better themselves, that wants to get out of what they've done, it's a long process. If you got a new sober home in your development, listen to me. Go meet those girls or guys. Let me tell you what, they'll have a smile on their face. They may be the ones that they may offer to help do your yard work. You gotta keep right. I mean, but you instead of, there's nothing worse than that feeling of getting a stare down. Don't judge, because honestly, they're on a new journey, and we all make mistakes.
Yes.
Right? So if we could once again get rid of the stigma and all of that.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
But we do need more of this in our community.
And as two moms here, we've both been pretty honest that we've struggled with addiction with our own sons. One of the hardest things I think as a mother on my end was, I did call this campaign that I started SilentNoMore because whatever the mental health crisis is, and it is a health crisis, it's killing people, it's destroying families, people are getting divorced, neighbors are getting cars broken into, churches are burying our own, and I know for me, I kept quiet for a long time because I was worried people would look at my son and not see the precious, beautiful, talented, giving man that I know my son was going to become. And wanting to protect his privacy so people could see the heart of who he was rather than the things I didn't want him to be doing either. And I think we can make a choice in our little community, starting with us now, to let the moms and dads all around know that maybe addiction isn't in your home, but you're willing to put a loving arm around that mom and say, I know I don't know what it's like to not know if your son is sober or your daughter is coming home, but I know what it's like to love my kid with all my heart. And I'm here for you. We could have talks like that, but we don't.
And I was the mom that after I got my son to treatment the first time, and let me tell you what, addiction, it doesn't define us. My son, he has a heart as big as his own body. He's the most loving, warm. He is brilliant. He's a great musician. He's got so many great qualities, but he struggled for years. As a parent, as we're talking, we love our children unconditionally. We had to set boundaries that maybe we did not want to do. But I was the parent the first time after I sent my son to treatment, and I had 3 of his best friends' moms come over, and I remember sitting there and I told them, and I remember it got really quiet, and it was comments like, oh well, he must have done it in his bedroom, but we got to go.
You feel
It got
judged.
when they left, I cried. I mean,
Yeah.
and I never heard from them
And
again.
where's the
There was
warmth?
no support. There was no warmth because they didn't want to associate with me because
Right.
they didn't want to deal with
Yeah.
it.
And you know, here's the thing, that it can be the opposite of
Right.
what Pam experienced. I kept very quiet about what we had experienced, you know, and the experience was really years long of my son really just masking major depressive disorder, that he was depressed and he was trying to self-medicate as a child.
Right.
And then what you start doing as a little kid, it can
right.
grow into a big adult pain. And but I felt really blessed because I started to trickle the talk. You know, people
Right.
at the time I was training full time, so maybe
Right.
I'm training a client and they say, how are you doing? And say, you know, it's been a struggle. And that client may have said, actually I did have a client who said, you know, my husband has struggled with being suicidal, and he's struggled with this his whole life. I had a neighbor who let me know that after her son had been bullied, he was so severely depressed that even when it was remedied, he had to change schools.
Yes.
I personally experienced traumatic things. I could tell you, if I smell pot, I was telling Pam before we went live, the smell of it triggers something that upsets me. And it's not about whether it should be legalized or not legalized. It just brings back a time in my life that was turmoil in my home, and my children were unhappy, and my son was dying inside. That's what that represents.
Yes.
And
we've all, I mean, so, you know, not only do we have people that are suffering around our county, there's whole families.
Yeah.
I mean, one time I was done doing an intervention, and I was trying to explain to the mother why tomorrow had to be the day, because she truly didn't understand. But with our disease, if we didn't get him somewhere tomorrow morning, by tomorrow evening he'd be back to using, and
maybe
we
dead.
had to square one, or maybe dead. So you got to get him. When someone says, "I'm ready to go with this disease," I have to have a place to put them. And that's a whole nother topic we could go on, but we don't have enough beds, we don't have enough places to stabilize people. But anyway, what was I talking about before I got that?
Oh, no, I know. You get excited about
Wait a
every
minute,
little
what was I
aspect.
All right,
but
hold
I'm saying,
on.
like, so you got to get that change right then. And I think
Right.
families that are supporting people like us,
Yes.
the best thing you could do is love us, for one.
Right.
Just as I would, if I told any of you watching this now who know me or Pam that I had a mole and it was questionable,
Right.
somebody's going to come back and say, how did it go?
Right, exactly. Versus the silence, I don't want to be part of that little secret society, but what we have to understand is that, once again, it is a disease, and it is everyone has trauma in their lives, right? My trauma is different than your trauma. Some people have better coping skills than others. If you don't have good coping skills and you're willing to risk trying something, chances are your brain could latch on to something. And then with the younger generation, most of them are dual diagnosis. Basically what that means is that they have found a substance to kind of like level them out. They're self-medicating, but when you're dealing with drugs or alcohol, we're choosing something that could kill us. So with all the young adults that I've worked with, they always tell me social anxiety, depression, over and over again. That's two common denominators as to why they got involved in their active addiction.
I have learned, which I shared with you before I went live, I visited an event at a VA center in Pennsylvania, and learned from a treating doctor that 80% of the veterans there with PTSD were dealing with addiction, and most of them an opioid addiction, many of them also alcohol.
Yes.
And to imagine 80% of any group,
it's
like you said, dual diagnosis.
Yeah.
And
so,
I don't believe the statistic has changed. Like suicide. Who's most likely to commit suicide? A middle-aged white man. Who's more likely to die of an overdose? Anybody.
Yeah. It
doesn't discriminate.
I think
suicide doesn't either. I'm just saying that's
right. No,
this is all of us. We have to have these discussions.
Yeah, we have to be able to just talk openly about it and not feel judged. I I'm not a bad parent because of my son's journey. I have 3, you parent all your kids the same.
Yeah.
It was hard for me to digest that I was powerless over my son. I wanted to fix him. Oh, believe
my
me,
gosh,
I wanted to fix him so bad. He had to want it, right?
Yeah.
I was powerless, but it's not a reflection on my parent.
Yeah.
And that's what parents have to understand. It doesn't make me a bad parent because my son has gone through this.
No.
Right?
Not at all.
What any of us,
We go
our
through
kids
these
are
things.
going to stumble.
Yes.
How do we learn? We know teenagers are going to make mistakes. It's all about how they respond to that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. And another thing we talked about before we went live is some of this is stigma, and a lot of it is just call it naive, call it ignorant, whether we are choosing it or it's our nature. It doesn't matter. It's sort of like
it doesn't matter.
But what does matter is we address it. So
right is that we start talking like what we're doing, and listen. Voices. The more voices that we get involved with this, think about it. Let me put it like this. On average, 174 people overdose and die. These are sick and suffering people that don't know where to turn. Die daily. Now, think about this. 174 people. That is an airplane going down, crashing every day in the United States. People would be alarmed. There would be such a...
Like if there was a crash every day.
Every day. Because 174 people, that's like one plane crashing. But really, where are the people that screaming that we want to help?
Right.
We need to help. It's going to take all of us.
And I don't want to minimize anyone's tragedies, traumas, but we need to treat this the same way we do that pink ribbon.
Yes.
With the same type of love and tenderness and compassion. I'm not diminishing breast cancer awareness. It's an awful disease, and I've lost friends, and I've had friends battle this. I know it's serious, but we are really not, as a society, I think we're getting better, but we haven't gotten to the level we are now where we can address this the way we need to. And this is apolitical, by the way. I don't care who you vote for.
No, it's
what church you go to or don't go to. What neighborhood you're in. Mental health. We all have a brain.
That's right.
And a body. Your addiction came because you fell.
Right.
Cheering her son on at a football game, she severely injured, has this. Some people just go through a really awful time and are grasping at straws for something to feel better. There's some kid somewhere at a party who innocently thinks, I'm just going to try a little of this. Right. And it's done.
And they say now within 72 hours you can become addicted to opiates. But when I'm out talking with these young teenagers, sometimes you do need an antidepressant, or you do need like Xanax or something. But any of these drugs that you're given, a doctor should be required to tell you, look, you can't just cold turkey. If you have somebody that's been taking antidepressant 9 months, 6 months, and they try to cold turkey, they go suicidal. I mean, you get suicidal thoughts. It's scary. It's scary because it's changing our brain chemistry. Yeah. But these kids are looking
we need
like,
the
are
oversight.
You serious? Like, who told you? They'll start raising their hands, and these are just simple
and moms,
things.
dads, I can tell you, almost all of your teenagers know the kids who sell it and get it. Most teens know who they can bum some Adderall off of.
Oh yeah, they in the bathroom. It's everywhere. And I think we need to realize
we need to have this talk.
Right, and as parents, we need to realize that this is not how we grew up.
No,
this is not. These kids, seriously, they can text somebody in 10 minutes, have whatever they want. This isn't about alcohol or some weed or whatever. These kids are stealing pills out of their grandma's, medicine or at home. They're going to these parties and they put them all in a bowl. They shake them up and they don't even know what they're taking. It's all, that's really.
And
where
there's
we're
some
at.
teenager that goes to school with one of our kids or at college, one of your young adults who needs some medication, maybe it is
Yeah,
Adderall,
well, right,
maybe
yeah.
it is an anti.
Some people-
and someone is stealing it or getting it
Now they-
from them, and now you've got a whole. This is why we have to talk about it,
Yes.
like this.
Exactly, just open and light and airy, and we could really help each other, and you become a kind of a powerful force. But it's going to take our whole community.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's not. There's no. I wish I could say there's a magic wand. There is
No.
no magic wand
Yeah.
to any of this. I mean, it's all something that we have to address and be willing to, open up our hearts.
Yeah.
And try to at least understand, and not judge.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I would encourage everyone to, whether you are as happy as could possibly be and your family is in the best place you've ever been, to reach out and learn what those signs of a real mental health crisis looks like. Because most of us are going to face a little bit of one, but we're all going to meet someone who's going through one. You just can't exist these days, especially, and not meet someone who's lost a loved one to suicide, who's lost someone to an overdose, who has someone in rehab, who isn't talking to a family member because of whatever, and who doesn't have a child hospitalized for a mental health crisis.
It goes on and on.
How hard?
It goes on, and we all have those your peaks and your valleys in your life, but everyone needs somebody to support them.
Absolutely.
And it's nobody likes to feel like they are lesser than,
Absolutely.
and that's kind of when you're dealing with a lot of these mental illness, that's how you start to feel, and that just causes the downward spiral. Yeah. even
Absolutely.
faster.
And Pam talks to a lot of schools, high school students a lot, and frankly, a lot of us adults need this.
Yeah, I mean, I think that once again, you come in, none of us judging any of us. Just let's talk, let's learn, let's ask questions. Knowledge is power. I mean, this is how we could help to make a little bit of a dent. But if you're a parent and you're really clueless and you don't know the signs,
and you don't know you're clueless, you're just loving your kid,
right? And all of a sudden they're
I've
starting
been there.
to withdraw, or they're losing weight, the grades are going,
they're angry and they're suddenly dressing different.
You see
right?
the mood swings.
Yeah.
These are all something's going on that we have
whole
to get help
new
with.
sets of friends. They've changed, and I'm talking drastic changes. I'm not saying like they go through a phase, but suddenly they've either gone from being kind of a naturally melancholy person to highly excitable, or vice versa.
Right.
But
any opiates, if you're heroin, whatever, their pupils are pinpointed. They become like dots.
Thank you, Joanne.
Those are just like little signs, but once again, it's simple. It's simple, but it's so complicated. But
I think it's complicated because it's right here.
It's your heart.
It's in the depth of your being, and I don't know why I said it this way the first time I said it, but it's how I feel, especially with our children, but also our spouses, your best friends, whoever you love deeply, who's struggling. I wish there was a color, like they could look at me and see a specific color that is the epitome of how much that love is. Like I would say that when my child was struggling the most, that I wish he could just see the way that I love. I wish there was a color, a smell, something that you see it and you're like when I smell baby powder, I think of my baby. Something that said, this is how much my mom loves me. This is how precious I am to her. But we don't have that. We just have this. Right.
Yeah. It's so true. And honestly, especially young adults that are in early recovery, they need love.
Absolutely.
They need support. They're broken. They feel like they're already labeled. That's the word that I get from a lot of them. I'm labeled now.
Yeah.
And I have,
especially if you get an actual diagnosis, that it's hard. It's hard not to call your diagnosis your identity. And if any of you do have a diagnosis, it's good to have a diagnosis. Exactly. Even the answer, finally,
and medicine helps so many people.
Yeah,
and
it doesn't have to be bad.
No.
Yeah.
But once again, there's this dark black cloud around mental illness.
Yep.
So I shouldn't have a young 15-year-old come up crying to me and saying that, I'm bipolar, and I don't want anybody to know because, you know, and how sad is that she walks around, but, you know, she's like, but if I'm on my medicine, I feel just great.
Just great.
You know, so
yeah,
it's just.
And a mom or a dad shouldn't have to whisper about it behind a corner. Like, so, you know, and as before we close, and I could talk to Pam for hours and hours and hours, and you guys would be in bed, but I can be a talker. I don't want to close sharing information, especially such a beautiful, hard, like, beauty from ashes. And
thank
so,
you.
and,
Which is sweet.
But it's something, it baffles me, is that there are resources. There are many resources that most of us have. Granted, we could do a ton better, but somebody somewhere here watching this now or watching it later is going to say, I'm going through this. Someone I love is going through this, or someone is going through another very serious mental health crisis. In almost every place I've been to, if you dial 211,
yes,
211, definitely here in Maryland, I even know even in Mississippi, in many states, most states, if you dial 211, you are going to find your local resources. You can say, look, I don't need sirens blazing right now. I don't need the police and the firefighters and the ambulance here right now. But my spouse is an addict, or my wife is in a manic state and at risk to herself, and I need to know where to go.
What to do.
I called for someone about a year and a half ago who kind of took under my wing, and I loved her, and she needed help. And I actually called while I was in Mississippi.
Wow.
But I thought I was going to get 211 in Maryland because I was on my Maryland phone. But I actually got 211 on the Gulf Coast of Mississippi.
It works.
They linked me to
the
Mental Health Center here, Mental Health Association here in Frederick, Maryland. And I was able to make an appointment or help this person literally say, hey, we got you an appointment in 2 days. Yeah. All I had to do was call 211.
Call 211, reach out. Listen, I mean, especially when we're dealing with young adults, you know, unfortunately, statistically speaking, most young adults, when we're dealing with drugs, they overdose and die in their own home due to the fact that, you know, the family's trying to think still, and I get it that they could fix them. Reach out. You know, there is help. There is hope. It's, you're powerless, and that's a hard word to really digest. You've done it. I've had to do it, but you know, many nights crying, many nights you praying, feeling you're gonna pull your hair out, or maybe even sometimes I wanted to prank on my son, right? You know, get it? Why can't you?
What's wrong with you?
You know,
how many of you have been asked this? Or I've asked this of someone you love, what's wrong with you?
Right, what's wrong with you? Right.
Like, I heard this phrase, if someone knows, I think it's from a movie or a book, and it's, when you live in an asylum, crazy is normal.
Yeah, that's the truth. That makes sense.
When addiction is in your home, there's a piece of crazy that becomes normal.
Yeah, right. The chaos, I mean, when it gets to the point where I knew, like, what my day was going to be like with my son by how his feet were hitting the steps going downstairs. And, you know, and the anxiety. And, you know, and I know there's a lot of people out there that are, you know, dealing with this right now. And what I'm going to tell you is there is help. There is hope. Don't ever, as a parent, don't ever lose hope. Because, and I don't care, you know, oh, Johnny's been to treatment 4 times. I don't care how many times, you know, as long as they're making progress and they're going to get it. Because I think that's why my heart's, you know, really heavy for the younger generation. Because I know how hard it was for me. And, you know, it truly is the hardest thing, one of the hardest things they'll ever do in their life. They will grow, though, by leaps and bounds.
Absolutely.
And they will get back on track. Absolutely. You know, but you just have to.
You can't give up.
No, there are kids.
I have met so many people since I started asking people. I'm basically asking you all to have this conversation with me. If you've experienced this, I want to talk to you. but I want to talk to you because someone's life will be saved. Some
Exactly.
marriage might be saved.
Exactly.
Someone might decide not to take that first drug or to call 211 because they're feeling suicidal or because we're having a conversation. But
sometimes these raw conversations,
Yeah.
they're the hardest. But
yeah,
the more you start
don't
to talk about
do
it, the easier
alone.
it's going to get.
Yes.
Right, and you won't do it alone. But
Yeah.
reach out. Like like
yeah.
she said, 211. There's tons of resources. Private message, Gretchen. Private
Yes.
I mean, what it doesn't really matter, but you need to talk to somebody. Don't get inside your head, and it just because you start to downward spiral
Yeah.
even quicker.
Yeah.
And as a parent, there's only so much that we can really, put up with.
Absolutely.
Because it, like she said, it tears the whole family's being torn apart.
Yes. That none of us should, none of us have to, none of us
Do this
need to
alone.
suffer.
Yeah, we should. Why do it alone? Why let your shame, let the guilt go, and do what's right.
Yes.
Do what's right.
And I'm recognizing some people here that names that pop up that are coming in, and I don't know what's going on in your hearts or in your minds and your families when it comes to the mental health crises issues. But I know some people who have joined in with us are difference makers.
Right.
And
yeah.
I would encourage any of you to either pull them onto to us here.
Yeah.
Reach out, volunteer with your local mental health association.
Exactly.
Do something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When I'm talking to students, these kids truly are looking for mentors. They're just looking for someone, not to text them, not to Facebook Live, but to look someone in the eye and talk to them. And I love young adults. I mean, they're our future, right? And what a better way. That's how I look at it.
These
It's going to get
conversations.
back. I'm kind of laughing because I've never done Facebook Live, so she's looking at all these comments and stuff.
I'm
and I'm
looking.
like, wow, I don't even know what this
if you guys
is.
see me leaning in, I'm
So,
like, look at all these people in
This
here.
is my Facebook first time, so she's the experienced one. I'm going, what is she talking about? And I'm looking. Oh,
So
I
I'm
see. It
seeing
says someone's
names.
watching.
I see. You guys may not see all who's watching now or who was watching, but so there's a handful of things I'll ask you to do. First of all, if addiction has hit your home and you don't know what to do, go ahead and call 211 right now. If you want to finish watching this, we're almost done. But call 211.
Call 211.
If you're
They'll direct
local, be one of the many people who inbox Pamela Knight. Even if Pamela is not the one to help you, I know the resources.
Right. It's this is one disease. If I hate to keep on going back because I don't ever want to get cancer. But anyway, if I had cancer, I don't care if I had Medicare or if I had a really good PPO, right? My path to wellness would be the same. Maybe not in the same facilities, right? When it comes to this, the lines go all over. Basically, because everyone's journey, but I can help you connect this to what you're trying to get. But basically, everyone's journey is different, and some people might be able to just, go to a hospital detox and then do IOP, which is
outpatient?
Intensive outpatient.
Okay.
Some people have to be removed. That's the other thing. I think, how many people, do you know what PHP means? Do you know what IOP means? Do you know what AMA means? If you don't, this like a whole...
So you could speak the language that they need to understand.
Right.
Because
if you don't know, do you know what pause is? What's pause? Post-acute withdrawal syndrome. I mean, I didn't know it until I went to treatment, but I think about parents that this is their first time. It's like we're talking two different languages, sort of a thing.
So as we wrap it up, I'd say dial 211 if you need to do this. If you or someone else is ever in imminent suicidal danger, call 911.
Yes.
Period. I would not personally recommend taking someone who is very actively suicidal, meaning they're making it an active threat to the hospital. I could tell you someone I love dearly jumped out of a moving car at that situation. Call 911. If you need someone to help connect the dots and how to reach out for that intervention help with addiction, reach out to Pamela Knight. She is tagged on the video here. If you have a story you would love to share, I would love to give you that opportunity, either here in my
Yes.
living room at your home if you're in
Yes.
driving distance, or we can Skype, or
Let's start talking.
Let's do it.
Let's
Yeah.
talk. Let's try to be. Let's make a difference.
And I could tell you, we both are pretty comfortable speaking, especially to high school students, but even adults. These are conversations we need to have. So you can reach out to either one of us, and we'll help each other reach your people. But thank you all for tuning in.
Yes,
Thanks,
be
Pam, for
well.
being
Thank
awesome.
you. My first Facebook Live.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.